everyone. Welcome to another Trident Talks. I'm delighted to be joined by Maria Matakas, who is the Chief Revenue Officer at Digital Shadows. Hi, Maria.
Hi, Sean. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate it.
No worries. Pleasure. Thank you for joining us. So I think we'll jump into an intro shortly, but just as an overview for everyone watching, we're going to talk about female leadership positions in cybersecurity. I know it's a big topic at the moment, off the back of International Women's Day or Women's Week that we've just had. And I think you're a really good example of someone who's essentially made it to the top or to C-level. And it'll be good to get your story and maybe some advice to other aspiring female leaders in the industry. So why don't you start by giving us a brief intro into who you are and what your background is, and so feel free to touch on what your role is within Digital Shadows.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you. So I started my career in finance, actually, working for an investment firm back in the day. And after that was done, I decided to go into business with my husband. And so he opened a commercial real estate lending company. So we worked together, building up his company, growing his client base. And my father actually, about 25 years ago, had started a value-added reseller, so a channel company in Salt Lake City, Utah. Actually was in business with a woman, so his partner was a female.
Nice.
And after about 15, 16 years of doing business together, the partnership kind of started to go a little bit south. And so he ended up splitting from her and said, I want to bring you in to come and take over, become the president of the company. Let's get it certified as a woman-owned small business, and then you're gonna take over. So I thought, why not? Let's take a risk. It'd be good to diversify. And I ended up taking over this value-added reseller company. And the first thing we did was I built a cybersecurity practice with it, expanded out of Salt Lake City to cover the Rocky Mountain region down to California. And then we started offering managed detection and response services through one of our partners, which led to that partner acquiring our company after running it for about, I think it was maybe 3 to 5 years.
Nice.
Then from there, that company 2 years later got acquired by ADT to build the cybersecurity arm for ADT. So we went through a second acquisition. And then once the earnout period was done, I thought, okay, now it's time to go get some experience on the product side instead of being solely on the channel side. And this is how I ended up at Digital Shadows as the Chief Revenue Officer. And
nice.
I've been here for 3 years. So,
nice.
Yeah.
All going well, which is the main thing. Interesting pathway, right? So switch from, industry, career change into channel, then into product, which is good. It's quite well-rounded as well. You've obviously been there and seen both sides, which is good.
Yeah, and it gives you a really good background coming from a finance background and really having an understanding of numbers, going through 2 acquisitions to really understand the intricacies of the business and how it works. And having been the president and owner of a business, you really understand the marketing aspect, how the channel partners work, the finance aspect, all the different components that go into running a successful company, which sets you up in the next role, in a C-level role in a larger company, to have a different purview of how all the different units work together.
Yeah. And I think as well, gives you that understanding of how important channel is, because there's a lot of sales leaders that have never done channel or never worked directly in channel that just don't see the benefit and the value in it. You probably come across them, right? And it's like, actually within SaaS especially, channel is absolute paramount to the business. And a lot of the time nowadays, especially with some vendors that we work with, it's 70% of the business as opposed to 50-50 or less.
It should be, because I think the channel is really undervalued from a lot of different perspectives, right? It's an off-payroll sales force for you.
Yeah.
If I had to go and try to hire, I don't have enough money to go hire 100 reps across the globe to go sell our services. So you need the channel from that aspect. The channel also carries a lot of the finance risk when you're dealing with smaller companies. And this is sometimes something that's overlooked when you think about it, because if your paper's with a channel partner, they're taking the risk. They're the ones that owe you when the contract gets signed, not the end user. Granted, they have to collect, but it's a one throat to choke type of a scenario. And then the third piece of it is channel really helps with procurement.
Yeah,
If
agreed.
they've already got paper in place with a client and it's less hoops for you to jump through, it shortens your sales cycle. It makes it a lot easier. So channel is a very big component of my business at Digital Shadows. We're a very channel friendly organization, would like to move to 100% business through the channel within the next year.
With regards to female leaders in cybersecurity, which is, as we mentioned, right, it's a massive subject. There's not enough of them. That's clear. And I know off recording just now, we briefly touched on why that is. Like, there's various scenarios, but what do you feel is like some of the main reasons or the main causes why there's not? Like, we spoke about it being a generational thing just now, which I think is absolutely fact. But from your experience, I mean, you're the essentially the final person people speak to, right? Especially for senior roles at Digital Shadows. So you're the gatekeeper, so to speak, right? They don't come in unless they've impressed you. So you must be seeing more. Do you see more males than females, like typically at interview stage?
We do. So it's interesting. I think part of the problem is, given the lack of female leadership in cybersecurity today, women just don't see other women in these roles. They don't see female CISOs. They don't see female engineers. They don't see female channel engineers. They don't see a lot of female chief revenue officers. And so when they don't see it, they don't think that's a career or aspirations they should have. And so part of it is breaking down the silos, saying there are a lot of women in here. Make sure you're networking, make sure you're prevalent in your community. So the younger kids coming up say, oh, wait a minute, that's really cool. We've got
it can be done.
Yeah, it can be done. And so it's showing them that it can. When we're interviewing for candidates, it is predominantly male currently.
Yeah.
It's the nice thing about Digital Shadows is the founders, Al and JC, really do believe in hiring women into leadership roles.
Yep.
Our VP of engineering is a female. Our VP of marketing is a female. We just hired a director of channel who's a female. We're looking at a director of product marketing who's a female. And they're really trying to push getting an equal split between male and female in the company. And that's not something you see in a lot of businesses, especially some that have been around for generations. And that's why I said I think it's a generational thing. I think the younger CEOs that are coming up are more inclined to say, hey, let's look to diversify and break up the good old boys club.
Yeah, agreed. And it's about having that focus, right? When you're going out and doing recruitment, it's not about necessarily taking the first person who comes along who is more than likely going to be a male. Statistics will tell you that. It's about being patient and trying to strategically search for females in the market as well, which is obviously where we come in on that side of things, right? That's our job. I do think sometimes it can work. It can be a negative when companies are hell bent on having a female and they may not be the best person for the job. Sometimes if there's a male goes up against a female, the male's more experienced in that position over the female. That's a different subject altogether. But I definitely think having focus to start with on finding more females, especially in leadership roles, is key, and not enough companies do it. Do you think in general, like I've worked both sides of cybersecurity recruitment, right? So technical is where I started, and I moved into recruiting commercial people. Mm-hmm. And I do believe there's more females on the commercial side than there is technical. I think technical is really low, right? It's really, really low. And that goes all the way back to, people studying cybersecurity in university they're just predominantly male. I think we're seeing more and more females from, especially from expeditions and stuff we've been on where there's students coming up to us. There's a lot more females, but typically it's male driven. Do you think it's more difficult for the technical side to increase in females as opposed to commercial?
I do, because I think it's one of those things where when you go to the classroom and you go to a computer science class, it's predominantly male. They need to see some of the female CISOs and the more technical ones coming and speaking at the colleges and starting even when the kids are younger, saying, hey, girls, did you think about looking at a career in cybersecurity? Have you thought about looking at a career in technology? And start it young. I mean, when I was growing up, there was a big push to get women in math and science programs, right? Yeah. Because women didn't go women didn't do that, right? And I look at it from my perspective. My mom was an immigrant from Greece. She came over, she went to school at the University of Utah, and she was one of 2 women in her graduating class and got a degree in chemical engineering. Yeah, so crazy. I've always had the role model of, it doesn't matter if there aren't enough women in the profession, you can do anything you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so I think it really comes down to just making sure that when you're talking to the younger girls that are impressionable, you can do anything you want. You can go be a security professional. You can go run a company. You can go be a chief security officer at a company. You can do it. They just need to have exposure and the right encouragement, I think. And then I think we'll see a shift start in the industry a little bit.
Yeah, agreed. And I think we are seeing it more now than ever. And it's definitely a bigger subject. We spoke about, just off camera earlier, we spoke about imposter syndrome. And this is something that I speak to people about day in, day out. And you touched on it as well. Have you ever felt that yourself? Have you ever felt like, I shouldn't be in this position because I'm a female? Or have you worked with colleagues that feel like that? Because it does happen, right? And it shouldn't be. It does. And that's the fact.
If I did, I would never admit it.
Fine. Fair point.
But it's one of those things too. I think sometimes being a woman in these higher positions, you have to work twice as hard as your male counterparts. You communicate in a little bit of a different way. And sometimes when you don't want to be perceived as emotional, you need to be perceived as firm and assertive. And so it's a fine balance between the two. I personally think if any women were in those positions, I don't think they would share their feelings saying, I don't feel like I should be here. I think they would keep it to themselves or talk to another colleague that's a woman and say, here's what I'm going through, and lean on them for support. But I don't think they would ever share it outright.
Yeah, you're probably right. And it's a difficult one, right? Because it's almost showing a weakness that doesn't exist, if that makes sense. Like, it's not a weakness. It's just, no, it's good. And it's good to see companies like Digital Shadows having a focus on bringing females in, not just into the industry, but making an effort at leadership positions. I don't think there's really, like we said, there's not a definitive answer in how to bring more leaders in, apart from companies need to focus on it more. Female leaders need to, make it clear to other females in the industry, and also male leaders, right? Not just female leaders, but male leaders, that females can do it, and women can get to C-level positions within the industry. Is there anything else you'd want to add in terms of that you think can be done or can't be done in terms of the industry? Are we doing anything massively wrong or right, away from what we've discussed?
I think so when I was interviewing for this job and I was talking to the CEO, and he said hiring women, moving them up in the ranks is very important to me. And I said, okay, that's great. How many women are in leadership positions at the company? I think it's one thing for someone to actually say it, but it's another thing for them to actually do it. And so if you're interviewing for a role, you want to understand your opportunities and your growth, ask the question. How many females are in leadership positions? Does the company try to actively recruit women? Are you involved in any external types of programs at schools or whatever it is to encourage females in the cybersecurity industry? And when you find those companies and they're actually doing it, it's a great company to go and work for. And that's really what attracted me to come work at Digital Shadows, was listening to what the CEO had to say, seeing that he actually is implementing and following those practices. That was a big deal for me. And then being able to come in and bring more females into the roles, qualified, right? Not just bringing them in because they're female, they have to be qualified, but having the opportunity to take the time to find the right role, the right fit. It's been really great, actually. Yeah,
you've hit the nail on the head, right? It's all good and well saying, but it's actually doing it and implementing it. And I think in the way the industry is at the moment, right, everyone's fighting fires. Everything's crazy, from technical to commercial, everything's crazy. And it's making sure that when you have a hire come up, you're not just filling it with the first person that comes along for the sake of it.
You got to fill with the right person.
Taking time, right?
Yeah, employee retention is a big deal. Everyone's going through the Great Resignation right now. It's very hard to find talent, but it doesn't mean you should just fill the role, because hiring the wrong person is more detrimental than having the role open, I think.
Yeah.
And just to touch on something I said earlier, one of the things that I try to do too with our customer base. So when we have a handful of female CISOs that are our clients, when they come in or when we're working on a deal with them, one of the big things I want to do is make sure that they're networking with the other females in the industry. And so it's hey, welcome as a customer, glad to see you on board. Just want to make a couple introductions to some of the other women that we're working with as clients, help expand your network, help build the relationships across the board. That seems to be a good way also to help getting women connected, helping them fill other positions if they need to, and really trying to expand the network that women have in the industry.
Yeah, I agree. That's really interesting. And it is, it is such a big subject at the moment, and it's something that needs to be made as vocal as possible, but not just vocal, like actually do. And
Yep.
You guys are doing really well. And it's notable, like people mention it as well, right? Oh, digital shadows of another female in a leadership role or a senior management role. And it's like, okay, like it's when people start to notice, that's was like, right, okay, maybe we should do something about it. So that's good. No, I really thank you for your time. Quick, I guess, light-hearted question to finish. If you won the lottery tomorrow and you could retire, I know you love your job that much that you probably wouldn't, but if you could, what would you do? What do you like doing outside of that?
This is an easy question. I already have the answer of the retirement. Yeah. I would go be a mountain host at one of the local ski resorts in Salt Lake City and work in the winter, take people skiing, give them a tour of the mountain, and then I would not work in the summer. Nice.
Sounds awesome.
So that's the plan. 5 years, 10 years out, that's what I'll do. Good choice.
Yeah, good choice. No, it's good. Thank you for your time. Really enjoyed speaking to you. And hopefully, we'll have you on again in the future.
Would love to. Yeah. Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Maria. See you soon.
Thank you.